Good day, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you again. And today we're going to complete our active and passive voice lesson. Now, what you'll notice today is I'm going to run through everything we've done to date, because we did the present and the past tense, active and passive. And then we want to look at when we use our continuous, anything with the ing. So let's have a look here. It's Mrs. Swart, and I'll be taking you through this lesson today. Just to remind you that an active sentence can only be written in the passive voice if you have a transitive verb. In other words, the subject has to have a direct object. And when you add up the number of words at the end from the active to the passive voice, you should have 2 more words than what you started with. You have to know your formula, and this is in your present tense, where we said the man pats the dog, and the tense of the verb in the active voice, remember, that would then be pats. And what does pats tell us? It tells us what verb will be used in the passive sentence, and that will assist you to know exactly what it is you have to do. So make sure you remember that. Very simple rules, but it will go a long way in making sure you know exactly what you have to do. Again, a reminder of the verb to be. He is, she is, it is. Remember, we're busy with the present tense. You, we, and they are. And when we look at this sentence where we have, remember what I told you, when I use a pronoun as the subject, what is going to happen? When the pronoun, the subject, swaps places and lands up here at the end, in the object's place, you don't have to mention it. It's not necessary to mention it. It will still be correct. That is why it's indicated in brackets to make sure that the marker will know, listen, if it's there, I accept it. If it isn't there, it is still correct. When we look at the past tense, you will see that the verb, that's the form of the verb there, it determines the form of the verb to be, which is in past tense, and that will then be was or were. Remember, you need to know your pronouns. And by now you know them, so I don't have to run through each and every one of them because you are all up to date. Now, when we have the sentence, again, it's an example of when we start with a pronoun. Then, when it becomes the object or in the object's position, we don't have to mention it. But if we do mention it, we will still be awarded marks for it. But now what happens when we get to something like a continuous tense? When do I use is being? Remember the ing? That one we often find that you want to use it. You really like using it. But when is it the correct time to use it? Is being, was being, or were being? When we have a present tense sentence like this, we say he is patting the dog. This is now in the active voice. Is, we already have a form of the verb to be. And that tells us, because we already have a part of the verb to be in here, we have to add another word. Remember, when we finished, we have to have at least 2 extra words. So now what happens is patting tells us we're going to say is being. And that's very straightforward because here we find is. And here we find is being. So the dog is being patted by him. And that will assist you in making sure you get this correct, because is patting is present. And here we're using the present tense. It's a form of ing, of a continuous tense, is being patted by him. Then, if we look at it in the past tense form, we say he was patting. Here we already have was. So now what do we do here? We have to get this correct. We have to make sure there's the extra word in there. Otherwise, we've missed the boat. So was patting has to become, remember now the dog is going over here to the subject's place. The dog was being patted by him. And here again, remember, what was the rule? That's right. The rule for the pronoun is you don't have to mention it, but if you do mention it, perfectly acceptable. And it's really interesting then to see was being patted. Why? You can't say he was patting the dog, that the dog was patting him. That's not what the sentence said. And what are we doing here? We're saying exactly the same thing. We are just saying it in a different way. So you have to make sure it still gives you the same information. So remember this one, he, subject becomes in the object's place. Your object here changes over. Remember, I always cross my arms and then I tell you that the two change places. You have to have the correct form of the verb to be plus the correct form of the verb. And here the verb was patting. So what is the correct form of the verb here? Patted. And he, you could either put it in by him or you could leave it out. You don't write brackets when you write the sentence. The brackets are an instruction to the marker. I apologize for that. Somehow or other the sound went on my cell phone as well. But let's quickly look at this again. So yeah, we know we have the form of the verb to be. And we know we have the correct form of the verb. And there we go. We take the subject to the object's place. And you do not write the brackets. Make sure you do not write the brackets. You will leave the brackets out and either leave this out completely by him and just say the dog was being patted or the dog was being patted by him. The brackets, again, I remind you, are for the marker so that the marker knows if they've written that in, I give the mark. If they haven't written it in, I still give the mark because it is optional. And optional tells us that you have a choice. So remember, if you get anything like that, that you remember that that's what optional tells you. Now, I tell you every time we're going to do a quiz at the end. And again, here's a quiz. I want you to read very carefully when you do the sentences. Very simple, straightforward sentences. You are given 3 sentences, possible responses for each active sentence. And then there's 3 passive voice sentences, but you have to select the correct one. Think carefully before you select it and do it to the best of your ability. If you don't get it done right now, rather do it at the end of the lesson and make sure that you get it right, because I know you have the ability, but you have to apply it. So here is the link. Practice makes perfect. And here is our link to the quiz. Make sure you complete the quiz. You can do this. You can get this right. You can even write the sentences out yourself if you don't want to try checking on the options of the quiz. And there is the QR code as well that you can use to access the quiz. So good luck with your quiz. I wish you great success with it and have a wonderful day. Thank you.